Welcome back to another episode of the Getting After podcast with your host, me, Brett Rossell. This is going to be another solo episode of the podcast. Right now, I'm still in the process of finding guests, lining them up, and getting them on board and working with their schedules. So bear with me as we continue to do that. However, this is a topic today that we're going to be going into, which I'm very passionate about. And a lot of the podcast that I've created is actually based on this concept. And that's the concept of extreme ownership. A lot of people don't know what that means, but to give you a general idea of what extreme ownership is, it's just the idea to take accountability of your entire life, responsibility for your actions. You're in the act of making sure that you're there to support a team and owning up to really all your decisions that you make in the future or with whatever you're doing. So that's the idea of what extreme ownership is at a very high level. However, we're going to get pretty deep into this thing. But before we do so, I want to tell you a little bit about Brett and how I used to be. Because I wasn't always the way that I have been. I haven't really always been this disciplined in my life. I haven't understood the value that holding yourself accountable to your decisions is. Once I graduated high school, I was someone who didn't really have a vision with where he wanted to go. I was your typical teenager that would roll out of bed around 11, 12. And first thing I would do, go to the kitchen, pour myself a nice sugary bowl of marshmallow mateys, which is the knockoff brand of Lucky Charms. And if you think that they're worse than Lucky Charms, go try them, because marshmallow mateys are far better than any Lucky Charms. I don't care if it's chocolate Lucky Charms or whatever. Anyways, I would always eat some cereal, and then the decision I would have to make next was, okay, am I going to watch SpongeBob or play Halo or another video game? Anyways, I was lazy and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I had sort of an outline, I wanted to go serve my church, or I wanted to go to college and start my degree, do these different things that kind of knew from an early start that I wanted to accomplish, but had no real ambition to do so. And so I was not goal driven. I was not oriented to go pursue things that I wanted to. I was just kind of going with the flow at that time. Didn't have a daily schedule. My job was pretty easy. I was working as an assistant for an executive at actually a frozen yogurt cup supplier, which was pretty good, pretty fun. Taught me a lot. And that's the thing too, is I just didn't question where I could go. And I was almost lost, you could say, just someone with no ambition or drive. And unfortunately, I think that's the case for a lot of people who graduate high school or who graduate college even, is they just don't know where to go after that. They've been led up to this point to where they've been told their entire life of, hey, this is what you do. And then you get to a point where you do all those things, like graduate, and now you're on your own. And that's kind of a hard place to be in. So I'm very lucky that I found this concept of extreme ownership. To be completely honest, it was easier to live a lifestyle without discipline or taking accountability for my own actions. It was almost like I was living in ignorance. I didn't have to worry about what other people thought of me. I didn't have to worry about supporting a team or holding myself accountable to go to the gym or do these difficult things that I knew brought value to people's lives. But since I didn't do them, I didn't have to worry about it, right? I was living this lie. I was telling myself, we often find ways that we can portray a false narrative and say things like, "Oh yeah, I'll push it off till tomorrow," or, "You know what? Someone else will take care of it. I'm good to go." Um, and I think often that happens to too many people, but um, I'd always try and find ways that place the blame on other people. For example, I played volleyball for about 6 years, starting in about seventh grade and ended in my senior year in high school. I had a shoulder injury, which kind of tanked me. But anyways, whenever something would go wrong, whether it was in practice or in a game, I'd always be like, okay, well, it was his fault. Or, you know what, they should have done better, and I should have been in the game. I could have changed the outcome. It was always them and not me. I would always find ways that I could place the blame on them, and somehow that made me feel better about myself, right? If it wasn't me making if it wasn't me making the mistake or me messing up, then I'm good to go, right? And that's just the wrong way of thinking. Um, you always have the opportunity to make an influence, or you have the opportunity to impact other people no matter what. And even if you are a bench player, like I was half my high school career, you can still support the team and help them accomplish the mission. And that's part of extreme ownership too, is realizing that and acting humble. But after high school, I was kind of going through that. I was in limbo for quite some time. I'd say about 6 months go by, and finally, someone knocked me out of my place and introduced me to someone named Jocko Willink, and that was my buddy Drake. So Drake in high school was one of my very best friends, and we'd always spend almost every single day together. And it was him that he introduced me to the concept of what extreme ownership is. I could see him starting to implement the principles of extreme ownership into his life. I saw him starting to take more accountability for his actions, whether that was with his relationships, with his work. I saw him doing things like he'd take jujitsu classes or try new things and really put himself out there. And I saw his well-being change. He became a much, I would say, stronger person, a better person, and someone who I said, I kind of want to be like that when I'm, older. Actually, I want to be like that now. And he really helped me see that change in myself and realize that there was opportunity for me to improve and get better. Um, and so we started talking about this guy Jocko Willink, right? Um, and it was funny because Drake was to the point to where he was full force in totally bought into the concept, to the point to where he'd show up at my house at like 4 a.m. and say, "Hey, Brett," he'd call me, "Brett, I'm outside. We're going to go to a football field and let's just go do 1,000 lunges on the field." And I never said yes to that, but for whatever reason, he'd go and do it by himself because he was a beast. He actually ended up going to the RTC, I think it's San Diego State, and so he was going to join the Navy. Couple of things changed, but he ended up not joining and took a different path. But he was training and he had a purpose, and that was inspiring to me. And I could see these changes that he made to his own life, and I wanted that for my own because I saw the benefit long term of holding yourself accountable and taking responsibility for your actions. So I started to very slowly make those own changes to my own life. I would look for ways that I could exercise more. I would try and fess up to mistakes I made and learn from them. And that's the important part, is I would try to learn and realize that, okay, I slipped up. That's fine. It gives you the option to improve and get better. And a lot of people get, I think, caught up on that. They make a mistake. Say mess up at work a couple times, and it hurts their ego, takes a toll on them mentally. But really, what should happen is you should take a step back and say, here's what I learned from this situation, and here's how I'm going to be better moving forward. So it gives you the opportunity to reevaluate where you're at and really learn. Additionally, I also created a daily schedule. I was no longer the guy that would get out of bed at 11, even though, say, I didn't have anything going on that day, I'd still get up at a relatively early hour, not 4:30 like I do now, but like 7 a.m. We'll say that was probably my average. But I started implementing the schedule, finding things that I could do, getting busy, doing something. So I wasn't just sitting around playing video games and eating marshmallow maties all day, right? I took action with my relationships. If I offended someone, I would apologize right away and say, okay, hey, that was on me. And I'm sorry for what I did. Let's figure out how we can provide a win-win solution for both of us here. And so I started taking accountability with my fitness, my diet, my relationships. I began to learn more, read more, and do these different things that I saw change my life for the better. And I began to feel, act, and become the person who I wanted to be. And it was a very slow process, and I'm still obviously not 100% who I could be, right? Everyone is still a human. No one's perfect. And if anyone is perfect, they're lying to you. Social media is a really good indicator of that. So be careful. Be careful of who you're following on social. It might just be a clown. You know what I mean? Anyways, we don't like clowns. We don't like them at all. Big time scary. In order to make these changes in my life, I had to do two things, and that was both be humble and honest with myself. Like I mentioned earlier, we always tell ourselves some false narrative, like I can wait until tomorrow, or you know what, another rest day is not going to kill me. Hey, it was his fault, not mine. Or dang, slipped up on my diet. Might as well give in to that box of jelly donuts. There's all these different stories that we tell ourselves to procrastinate what we really need to face. We need to develop the courage it takes to really embrace those changes that we need to make rather than just shy away from them. Because the more that you shy away from them, the more that you're going to put it off, and the harder it's going to become to make the changes that you need to. There's this great quote from Jocko regarding the book, Extreme Ownership. And in it, he says, the book derives its title from the underlying principle, the mindset that provides the foundation for all the rest. Extreme ownership. Leaders must own everything in their world, and there is no one else to blame. So that's another thing, is you have to realize that you are in control of all of your actions. If you mess up, who are you going to blame? My favorite example of this is I was talking to my mom the other day, and I don't know how this conversation came up, but she's like, yeah, whenever I would I'd rip one, which unfortunately happens a lot. She'd be like, I'd blame it on the kids, right? And that was not extreme ownership, Mom. You got to learn. Just kidding. It's a really bad example, and I apologize for bringing that up. Anyways, there's no one else to blame with your actions. It's always on you, and you got to realize that. So be patient and recognize that when you do make these changes, just take it easy a little bit, okay? And the idea is, how do you implement this concept of extreme ownership into your life? There's lots of things that you can be doing, right? First and foremost is you need to figure out what your goals are and understand what actions need to be taken to get there. And that could look like a lot of different things. You could say, want to go to college. Okay, what do you need to do to get there? You need to take the ACT or SAT. You need to study hard and get good grades so you can get accepted into the college that you want. You need to figure out what those actions are to get to the end goal, which is receiving your degree. Okay, say you want to get better at basketball. You need to put in the hours, you go to the gym, shoot the hoops, even on those days when you're really tired or when you just don't have it, right? It's like that scene from Space Jam when all the aliens take the NBA players' talents. Like that's going to happen to you sometimes. The aliens aren't going to take your talent, but you're going to show up and you're going to be like, man, I feel so off today. I don't know what's going on. But it's on those days that it's important to really push through and figure out what your motive is and what's bringing you back to the gym so you can get better. And that's the other part too. So once you start taking responsibility for all these things in your life and you take accountability and don't avoid it, you're going to start to realize that this life change isn't going to be an overnight switch. It's going to take a lot of time. But the more that you start practicing these principles, the better off you'll be long term. Another important aspect is checking your ego. Egos are nothing but distractions that really impede your progress, right? It stunts your growth, both personally and professionally, if that's one of your goals. You need to be open to advice and critique even. And when that does come your way, just accept it and move on, but also learn from it. If someone says, hey, I think you could really improve your shot if you would follow through. You know, if you're a coach, I'm sure you tell a lot of your athletes you need to follow through. As a player, you take that advice and say, okay, what do I need to do to be better at what coach said? You know, instead of going, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He probably does if he's giving you advice and he's a coach. Okay. So no ego. Get that out of there. If you want to get better at applying these principles of extreme ownership, you need to find ways that you can support other people and be a better team member. Extreme ownership is rooted in the concept of teamwork. Obviously, yes, there's a personal aspect of it, like I mentioned, of taking accountability of your own life. But a lot of this comes when you're in a team as well, because mistakes are going to be made in your family, in your business, in your YMCA basketball team, maybe even your religious organization. Things are going to happen to where the blame is going to fall on nobody but you. And you're the person that has to go and say, that was me. I messed up. And here's how I'm going to be better. Just realize that without a team, it's really hard to get things done. If you want to do something in your life and you want to get really good at it, you need other people there to support you and to uplift you, especially when those times get hard. I mean, think about it. If you've ever been on a sports team and you've had one of those off days, like I mentioned, there's nothing better than one of your teammates being like, hey, it's all right, man. Don't worry about it. Brush it off. Let's get back on the court. You know, teams are super important. And you need to have a strong team if you want to succeed in any aspect of your life. And I'm not just talking about business or sports or anything like that, but you can consider a family a team. If you want to have a successful family, you guys need to be there to support each other. I absolutely love my family. And I know for a fact I could call my brother up at 2 a.m. and just talk to him if I needed to, because he's there as a support for me. And we've established that relationship. Obviously, it took time. He used to beat me in the head with like Donkey Kong toys to the point to where I would bleed, or he'd put me in a chokehold, or all these things big brothers do, right? Good big brothers do. But now we're best friends, and I feel like he's there to support me any day of the week. Another aspect of implementing extreme ownership into your own life is prioritizing and execute. And that's one of the laws of combat that is actually mentioned in the book. which you should go read it if you never had the chance to do so. But prioritizing and execute really means finding what's important to you and going off those tasks based on the importance level, right? So creating a daily schedule that helps you outline what your priorities are and executing on those. If you needed help with that, just make a list. Sit down right before you go to bed. Here's what I want to do tomorrow. I want to accomplish this at work. I want to go to the gym. I'm going to eat healthy. And then at the end of the day, you can cross those boxes off or whatever that might be. So create a schedule and stick to it and find out what tasks are most important to you and get them done first. Doing that will help you start taking action in other areas of your life. Soon enough, you'll be like, okay, well, I can't sit on the couch and watch another episode of SpongeBob because there's so many other things that I could be doing, right? Here comes the other part is you need to find balance in your life. It can't be work all the time. It can't be fun all the time. You can't be eating cheeseburgers and then one day have a salad and expect to be a super fit guy. There needs to be balance. Maybe it's a cheeseburger every couple days and healthy food throughout the week, like chicken breast, rice. Obviously, everyone's diet's different, and I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not saying any of that stuff. However, balance is key. Without balance, you kind of go crazy with whatever you're pursuing. It's really important to be focused on maintaining that balance. A lot of people always, think that they're not disciplined people, but Jocko says it best. He says, if you don't think you are disciplined, it's because you haven't decided to be disciplined yet. That's pretty simple, but it's true. Think about it. If you want to take action in your life, you just have to do it. If your alarm clock's set to go off at 5 a.m. and it goes off at 5 a.m. like you set it to, but you stay in bed, then hey, you're not disciplined because you haven't really committed to make the choice to wake up at 5 a.m. It was more of I'm just going to set my alarm and see what happens. If I wake up and feel good, sure. And that's part of the false narratives that we go into. We tell ourselves lies so we can have an easier lifestyle. That's not good. Don't do that. So as Jocko says, if you don't think you're disciplined, it's just because you haven't decided to be disciplined. So make that decision. If you want to do it, then do it. Extreme ownership isn't something that happens right away. These are principles that I'm trying to get better at every single day. And I'm sure in 5 years, I'll learn something where I'm like, okay, I need to be better at it in this aspect. It's a constant reevaluation of your life and owning up to your decisions and figuring out what's most important to you. There's this great quote from Winston Churchill that says, "This is no time for ease and comfort. It's time to dare and endure." And to me, what that says is, obviously life is full of challenges and trials. And because of that, you can't take life comfortably. You can't take the easy path. You have to really dare to endure. It takes courage to do that. It takes courage to really face your problems and figure out the best ways to solve them. I mean, it's difficult to do that, but it's true. Anyways, so that's those are just a few aspects of extreme ownership that have made an impact in my life. Obviously, I did not cover them all 100% in this podcast episode. It's more of an introduction to the concept of what extreme ownership is and just a few tips and tricks that you can do to implement it into your own life. Because I firmly believe that everyone has the power to take more control of their life by implementing discipline and figuring out what needs to be done, taking action, and benefiting from those results that come from it. Don't worry about things happening so quickly. Again, one of my, I guess, things that I've been mentioning a lot in this podcast is Just be patient with yourself. We're all human beings and we all tend to slip up and make mistakes. And that's fine because that's why we're human. And that's the beauty of being a human. At least to me, you know, messing up and falling back gives you the opportunity to detach and really figure out where you did mess up and understand ways that you can get better and improve your life. It's beautiful, really. As weird as that sounds, like don't worry about what other people think because you're you, and you are unique to whatever you're trying to accomplish in your life. Um, so hang in there, but implement these things. Start small. Find one little thing that you can hold yourself accountable to more. Let's take the example of a diet. If you recognize you looked at what you've eaten and said, hey, there's probably some areas that I could improve on or get better at. I probably shouldn't be eating an entire bag of Cheetos at night when I'm on the couch, which if you do that, that's fine. Like, and if you love it, great. That's you. And that's what I'm saying is everybody's unique and everyone has different goals. But if that's something you want to change, then change it. It's that simple. Don't tell yourself a false narrative. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest, check your ego, and go from there. Once you do that, you'll see how much better your life can get. You just have to take it slow and realize you're a human being. It's not perfect. There's a lot that I'm still trying to improve about myself. One of my goals right now is I'm trying to gain weight and gain muscle. If you listen to my very first podcast, I've come a long way since being 139 pounds at 6'3", which I don't know if you know, but that's considered very underweight. And I felt terrible. But I was also dealing with a lot of health issues at the time. So don't worry about that, I guess. Don't worry about what other people think because you're you. Again, you're unique. You just need to understand what you want in your life, take the necessary steps to accomplish those goals. The more that you do that, the better off you'll be. I firmly believe that. And if you do implement all these different principles of extreme ownership, taking accountability for your actions, supporting and uplifting your team, checking your ego, figuring out what needs to be done, and then making priorities and executing on each of those tasks. If you're doing all these different things that we've gone into today, you'll see your life change for the better. And then you'll find more ways that you can improve. And it's just from there, the trajectory of your life is whatever you want it to be. Because I firmly believe that everyone has the ability to create the life they want if they're willing to put in the time, effort, and dedication to their craft. Obviously, it's not easy. This is something that so many people still work on, and many, many people are trying to pursue with their own lives. One of the purposes of this podcast is to highlight those things that people are going after, and hopefully that inspires you to do the same with your own. And that could be whatever you want. If you're very passionate about collecting Pokemon cards and that's what you want to do with the rest of your life, by all means, go do it. If you want to become a world-renowned chef, then figure out what you need to do to learn the different worldly cuisines that you need to study and really become an expert at. Because I know you have the power to do it. And as dumb and cheesy as that sounds, it's true. You just have to make the choice to do it. Extreme ownership will help you get there. Implement these small changes to your life. Take accountability and be responsible for your actions, and then reap the rewards of that. That's my message for this week. Is just be patient. Start small with these different things that you can implement into your life, and go from there. But whatever happens, own up to your life, because ultimately that's the life that you've created for yourself. And you have to realize that whatever point of your life you're at right now, you've taken actions to get there. And if you want to change them, then figure out what necessary changes you need to make in order to do so. If you want to get better at whatever you're doing, do the same thing. Extreme ownership is a lifelong commitment. It's not just an overnight thing, or I'm going to try for a month, see where it goes. Because I guarantee if you try it for a month, you're going to get addicted to it and you're going to keep on doing it in your life. You're going to find ways that you can own up to different things. If it's important to you, you'll make it happen. And extreme ownership will help you get there. So thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. I know it was another solo episode and it was a pretty quick message, but it's an important one that I know everyone needs to hear. I need to hear it. And that's why I frequently listen to Jocko's podcast and other people who do what they can to hold the standard. Figure out what that standard is for you and don't let anything move you from it. If family is the number one priority in your life, figure out what you need to do to strengthen your family and support them so that they can support other people when they move on to whatever goals that they go into in their own lives. Because ultimately, you will benefit from extreme ownership, but others will as well from your decisions and from your help. So thanks again. And hopefully next week we get a guest that, it's pretty exciting, but appreciate you guys all listening. If you find this message at all helpful, please share it with other people or on social media, whatever you want to do. Until then, keep getting after it. Go find what you want to do and just do it. Go get some. Out.